Mr. Nguyen.
In this chapter, it is extremely important to understand the cost of goods manufactured. To understand this concept, let's revisit the merchandising business. In a merchandising business, there is beginning merchandise inventory balance. This would come from the prior period ending balance that we carry over to this current period. And in this current period, we add to this beginning balance the additional purchases of merchandise inventory. We would have merchandise available for sale to customers, right? And then if we have sales to the customer, cost of merchandise sold, then we would know the ending inventory balance. If the cost of merchandise sold is unknown, we could take the ending inventory balance, which we would know, subtract that from the merchandise available for sale, we would arrive at the cost of merchandise sold. Now, this is a merchandising business. When we talk about a manufacturing business, they do not have purchases of merchandise inventory. They have to manufacture the products, the inventory. And so there is what's called cost of goods manufactured, in the same way that in the merchandising business, they have purchases of merchandise. Now, let's take a look at the manufacturing business. A manufacturing business do not have merchandise inventory. What they have is called finished goods inventory. And they have beginning finished goods inventory balance. Add to it the cost of goods manufactured, then they would arrive at the finished goods available for sale. And if they sell any finished goods, they would arrive at ending inventory balance. Alternatively, we can take the finished goods available for sale balance and we subtract the ending inventory balance, we would arrive at the cost of the finished goods sold. As you can see, the formula is very much the same as the merchandising business. The merchandising business have what's called additional purchases that they add to the beginning balance of the merchandise inventory and arrive at merchandise available for sale. In a manufacturing business, instead of having purchases of merchandise inventory, we have cost of the goods manufactured, and we add that to the beginning finished goods inventory balance. We arrive at the finished goods available for sale, and then we subtract the ending balance to arrive at the cost of finished goods sold. Similar to how in the merchandising business there is cost of merchandise sold. The big question now is, how do we calculate the cost of goods manufactured? Well, let's think about this. To manufacture any product, what would one need? Of course, materials, labor, and overhead. So step one is we need to know the cost of direct materials used. And how do we obtain this cost? We would start off with the beginning materials balance that we have. Then we add to it the additional purchase of materials. We would arrive at materials available for use. With this balance, if we subtract the materials used, we would have the ending material balance. Alternatively, if we have this balance and we subtract the ending material balance, we would arrive at the direct materials used. And here we see that it is $130,000. And when we add to it the direct labor used, as well as the factory overhead cost, we would come to the total manufacturing costs incurred. We see that the total manufacturing cost incurred balance is $284,000. That consists of the direct materials used, $130,000, the direct labor cost used, $110,000, and the factory overhead cost used, $44,000. To manufacture our products, we have total manufacturing costs incurred of $284,000. We add to it the work in process balance, also known as WIP, the beginning balance, and this comes from the ending balance in the prior period, and that's $30,000. So now we arrive at the total manufacturing costs, which is $314,000. That is the work in process beginning balance plus the total manufacturing costs incurred. Now we subtract the work in process ending balance. This is $24,000. We would arrive at the cost of goods manufactured. So $290,000 is the amount of the cost it takes to manufacture the finished goods. Let's do a review. In the manufacturing business, we have the cost of goods manufactured. We need to know this cost. We add to it the beginning finished goods inventory balance. We have finished goods available for sale, and when we sell it, it's the cost of the finished goods sold, then we arrive at the ending inventory balance. So to know this cost of goods manufactured, our first step is to know the cost of the direct materials that we use. And to know the direct materials used, we take the beginning materials balance, we add materials purchased. Then we have materials that's available for use to produce, to manufacture. And when we subtract the ending material balance, we arrive at the cost of direct materials used. So that's step one. We add to it the cost of direct labor used. And the overhead, these are the indirect labor used, the utilities and power, the depreciation on factory equipment, factory supplies. So taking direct materials, direct labor, factory overhead of these three costs, we arrive at the total manufacturing costs incurred. And with total manufacturing costs incurred, it helps us to obtain the cost of goods manufactured. And to get the cost of goods manufactured, we start with the work in process beginning balance, WIP. Add to it the total manufacturing costs incurred, then we have the total manufacturing costs. Subtract from it the work in process or WIP ending balance, and we arrive at the cost of goods manufactured. And we use this balance, we plug into the formula where we have the beginning finished inventory balance. Now we have the balance of the cost of goods manufactured, then we would have the finished goods available for sale. Then subtract the ending inventory balance, we arrive at the cost of finished goods sold. A quick summary. The cost of goods manufactured. To get this amount, think of the manufacturing business. You start off with having the direct materials, direct labor, and overhead. But to get the direct materials, you need to calculate that. Use the beginning materials balance, add in any purchases of materials, then you arrive at materials available for use. Subtract the ending material balance, then you arrive at the direct materials used. Having the direct materials used, direct labor, factory overhead, this is called total manufacturing cost incurred. Total manufacturing cost incurred, you must add to it the WIP beginning balance to arrive at the total manufacturing costs, and then subtract the WIP ending balance to get to the cost of goods manufactured. So cost of goods manufactured, think about having WIP beginning balance, then add to it the total manufacturing costs incurred. So total manufacturing costs incurred, you would need direct material, direct labor, and factory overhead. But to get the direct materials, you need to calculate that, and you start with beginning materials balance, add additional purchases, then you have materials available for use, subtract ending material balance in order to get the direct materials used. Then with direct materials used, direct labor, and factory overhead, you have total manufacturing costs incurred. So add that to the WIP beginning balance, then subtract the WIP ending balance, you arrive at the cost of goods manufactured.